Just a little bit about me before we get into the presentation, because I know other clients and even our Creatio representative probably don't recognize me. My name is Sarah Levine. I'm a senior business analyst at Technology Advisors. I've been here for a year, which is why I'm a new face, but I've been a business analyst in-house at different corporations for the last 9 years. So I'm happy to talk about some best practices when it comes to Creatio and what you want to think about and how you want to address problems that might pop up, especially since I know probably most of you have classic UI, and you will need to understand some of these things that we're going to talk about here. And then when we get to the end of the presentation, I'm going to kick over the questions to our developers in the back of the room here. So wave Chris, wave Alan. They will be fielding your questions. They tapped me to do the presentation though, so I'm excited to talk to all of you. All right, let's kick it off. Okay, I don't want to read completely off the slide. You will be getting copies of this presentation, of course. But let's talk a little bit about packages for your customization. So packages is the largest building block of your individual environments, right? And you're going to need to understand your hierarchy. So we get into this. Sorry, kind of breathing, and this is really annoying. There's no hot I wanted to be a rock star, but I guess we're just going to do classroom style. Okay. So when we talk about packages, they have a hierarchy, and in the light, they have a hierarchy on the back end. So who here understands like the advanced settings tools and works in those daily? That's okay. Okay, a little bit. Okay, so on the back end, one of the best practices whenever you start your classic UI customizations, your configurations to your environment, is you create a package and you name it, and then you go into system settings and you're doing some other technical stuff to make sure that you're saving your configurations in a package for the purposes of what this is. Sometimes you do groups of configurations, and you will want to test some of these new things that you're doing when you're in testing and dev sites before you actually like either push that to prod or incorporate it and move them into a different package. But in general, packages have a hierarchy, and you're going to want to make sure that the location of where your configurations are is in a specific part of that hierarchy, so the rest of your system can read your configurations and you can do stuff with those configurations that you're working so hard to put into your environment. So again, packages can also depend on other packages. So we'll get into some diagram stuff a little bit later, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. Just to be aware of what happens if you don't do that thing in the beginning where I said first thing you do is you create a package and you need to set it in system settings. All the configurations that you make, if you haven't done that best practice step, starts getting saved to custom, which is a terminal package inside your environment. And that's not great because nothing depends on custom. So if there becomes, and we're coming up into problems with this with other clients where they put things in custom and now they want to put them into Freedom UI, and because of the nature of where this package is in this hierarchy, a very important thing to understand when you're looking at your own environment, makes it very difficult. There's a lot of extra steps now that we have to take in order to take those configurations, put them in another package. Anyway, so some of this stuff is to help prevent some of that headache later on down the road, is understanding how they work and how we set them up. So, and we kind of think about how we're organizing these hierarchies, because later on we do continuous enhancements, right? The whole no-code approach is that we're continually evolving. That didn't work. How do we make this better? We want to go in and use these new composable components that Creatio has worked so hard to put into your product. But it all comes with how are we setting up your packages in the hierarchy first, and making sure that you're kind of future-proofing your environment for your future development. Okay, yes, structured approach. So some of this internally, you'll want to come up with your own processes for where your customizations need to go. So if you're working in your dev environment, you'll probably want to not necessarily document, but you're going to want to have some internal controls about what packages you're going to put new configurations into. And you also, like again, back to that point I made on the earlier slide, package itself will only contain necessary changes that apply to the current project. So if you're working on a specific project, like I said, maybe you're doing the CPQ implementation that we just learned about. Any configurations that you're making to your environment that belong to that CPQ project, you're going to want to make sure that there's a package to hold that. Packages can also be beyond something that's a configuration. You may install an add-on from the marketplace. You may be installing a package that someone else has provided to you. Maybe it's your integration partner. We've built a package that is going to go into your system. So packages can also be installed into your environment. They're not just something that you create to hold your configurations, but in general, they're holding configurations at large that will be used in your environment. All right. So yes, I think I just talked about this. Maybe I'm talking about things a slide ahead. So yes, this is just what I said. It can be a set of customizations. That's like you're adding a field, you're adding a business process. You might be integrating with something else, and you'll have a package that holds the information for that integration. You'll have additional changes that might need to be made, and then there's that app that has that specific purpose from the marketplace. It could be a marketplace, it could be from somewhere else, but in general, it's that add-on feature. Let's go to the next one. Okay, here we go. I'm going to come over here, so we can talk about packages a little bit. All right, so there's two different ways that Creatio has, this is the documentation that you can get on the Academy of what the package relationships can kind of be like and what they can depend on. So let's see where to start. Package E, let's start with package E and kind of flowing up. Package E would be considered a terminal package because nothing else is reading package E. So if you're putting something into package E as some sort of configuration of sorts, and later on you want package F to look at it, do you think, at this point, can package F look at what's in package E? And the answer is no, because of how the arrow flows are going. So if you think of this, package E reads from the things in package C. Package C reads the things from package A and package D, and package D is reading from the things in package B. So package E is actually able to start looking at information from A, B, C, and D because it reads one package, but all of these other packages also read, or this package reads those. So that's kind of how hierarchy works. And looking at this diagram, I don't know if it's helpful for you, but we could look at how these are drawn in other ways. But that's in general kind of like how you want to start looking at your package relationships, because that's going to be important later on when you're doing your conversions from Classic to Freedom, or you're adding in a new app, or with how Freedom UI works, Freedom UI automatically creates apps for you when you're using their application hub and their no-code tool. Sometimes you're going to want to make sure that another app that you made needs to be able to interact with the first app you made, and so then you're going to have to go into those system admin tools and actually kind of do the work to understand where these are going. And in general, whenever you create a new Freedom UI app, it does generate like a special, like a randomized string to name that package. And so that package, it's good to document what it's depending on and what reads from it, so that later on when you come up across like what's going to be called like a cyclical reference issue, you already know where you need to go to add a new dependency here. Because eventually that package F, if you needed to also see what's in package E, you're going to want to know how to actually have it start reading from there. Because you don't want it to read from E, because it's already getting information from B. So how are you going to link package F so that it can see what was done in package E? And so those are kind of like the problem solving that you're going to do. Let's go to the next one. Okay, we'll talk about some more important considerations. So you have that package E we were talking about. We added some new lookup fields in there, and those lookup fields, of course, have different data tables that drive those lookup values that are in there. You're going to want to, if you're going to be moving a package around or moving those components that are inside of that package, you need to move them to another one because that's where the functionality needs to now lie. You're going to need to bind your data lookups to the package before you start moving things around or installing it into another environment. Unless you want to go and just re-import the lookups which is something you can do. You don't have to find the data, but it's important to know if you're like building out your dev, and your dev is going to be exactly copied from dev into production, finding data is going to be something that's an important step. So we'll move on. I think I talked a lot about this. So on the back end, when you're looking at the system designer, advanced settings, etc., you're gonna have like the dependencies diagram. If you have that little triple dot next to a little package folder, there's a little triple dot. It'll have one of the options is to look at like the dependencies, and you can see which packages it's looking at. Alternatively, there's also this really big spider web. I don't know, has anybody seen the spider web? I see someone over there, yeah, okay. So there's a very fun spider web that also can pop out, and you can really see how all of the different packages visually like connect with each other. And if you click on one of them to look and see where it's reading from and also what reads from it, it has these really fun through lines that highlight themselves so you can see which packages it's actually reading from. It's how you can determine that earlier kind of thinking problem I posed earlier with package E and package F. But in general, this is kind of where you start doing that management work, is where it says it depends on, and it's also what depends on it. So it's got two different sets of packages. When you're looking at the current package that you're looking at, it has two different types of package descriptions. It tells you which one essentially inherits from, reads from, depends on. Those are all synonyms for the same thing, right? And then the other ones where it's what's reading from it, what depends on it, what packages are inheriting the information from that current package. All right, customization complex. So, yeah, so some of this I've already kind of touched on. You'll want to make sure that the functionality that you are currently putting into certain apps, which is also a package from Freedom UI, but any configurations that you're saving, you're going to want to make sure that if the work you're doing, let's say the example I had was, what was my example? The CPQ configuration. Okay, so we're doing a CPQ configuration, but now we've gotten a request in. I'm the business analyst. I'm getting a request not only to do work for the CPQ, but I've also got a request in to do forecasting changes. And so I want to make sure that when I'm doing my configurations, I'm mindful of the project that I'm saving these to, because if I do my configurations for a forecast and I didn't switch the package that I was saving them to, I'm going to have to peel back all those weird changes I made, or move them over, which can require some less than no code work. And so you just need to be real mindful of like where you're saving your changes to based on the project that you're working on, and keeping that in mind for whomever's doing your admin and development work. All right, we've got a couple of cute hexagons here, and so these are kind of like at a high level, all the little things that I was talking about earlier, and also just like some little tips we can have here. So we've got the current package setting. That's where I'm telling you, like, make sure you're changing this in your system settings to make sure you're saving it to the correct package or project for that package. We have Freedom UI, which you don't use this to do Freedom UI things, and so you're making sure that you're actually doing the changes inside of the app for the Freedom UI object that you are doing your modifications to. You have package prefixes. We have, if you have a dev system that is old, get it updated. Like have Creatio do a refresh so that you have your production in the dev site, and now when you do your changes to dev, because it's now a fresh copy, you can actually see how it would affect your production environment. I think that one's like kind of like the most obvious to do. Go ahead, do that right now. Open up a ticket with Creatio and refresh your dev environment. And then the last thing down here is we want to make sure we're binding data that's important. We're making sure, again, reiterating that in a different way, how to make changes to Freedom UI apps, and then just keep track of different types of upgrade schedules as well for your system. All right, how to manage your releases. Again, these are just very high level. Who does these sort of like, who does the releases and pushes to production in here? Okay, got a couple? All right. So these are also just like high-level ideas of what you might want to follow, like a checkbox. Treat these like checkboxes to see, do I need to consider this? No or yes, but you've considered it, and so you can work through each of these. So just to read off the slide here really quickly, we're going to make sure that we have the custom package tested. So when you install it into your test environment, you're testing it to make sure that there's no errors before it finally goes to production. You can also request a test environment if you don't already have one, right? So this whole presentation was called Best Practices in Dev, Testing, and Production. So you're going to have 3, so make sure you have a dev, a test, and a production, of course. You have packages that are ready to go. You make sure that the installation is valid in the test environment first. Test environments can also be copies of production. It's not on here, but that's another thing to keep in mind. And then the package installation is successful. Then make sure you're scheduling a window where you're not going to interrupt users in the production environment to do that scheduling. And then also note that cloud upgrades are always becoming available. Sometimes it conflicts with a project. So it can be good to just kind of loop in your customer success manager as well if you're doing some changes, and also just keeping those lines of communication open between either your integration partner and Creatio as well. So I think that's it. So I covered a lot of stuff on a very high level without any diagrams, so nobody has any questions, I'm sure. But yes, what might questions you have about these packages, data binding, making your changes and implementing them? What do you guys think? Justin?
You said the custom package doesn't have anything looking at it, or it can't look at anything?
No, nothing can inherit from the custom package. That's the default package in Creatio. It's the terminal package. It's the very last one that reads everything. So if you're making configurations directly to that terminal package, and this does come up if you're trying to migrate from Classic to Freedom, Freedom will need to read from a package that you put your configurations in. You cannot put a Freedom package below the custom package because it is by definition terminal. It's the end of the line. So if you have configurations that you've made in custom, you'll need to move them to another package before then inserting the Freedom UI package to read. That's the most recent example of in one of the tickets I've been working to help resolve some of our clients' issues is that custom package question. And yeah, you cannot have anything read the custom package. Custom package ends up reading everything though.
You mentioned when you make the packages, it gets that kind of hashed string naming convention.
Yes.
You can go in and change that to an intelligent thing that relates to your project, right?
You can change the title of it, but the code of it is
still
static.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can change the title. Yeah.
I feel like I saw something in the last release. You might be able to set that out when you build it up, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I sort of think I read that recently.
Okay, it may have changed very recently.
Right.
I know it's U6D or U6D.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I know that this sort of best practice. This is continually changing. Some of the things I might tell you today will change because Creatio adds like maybe a different functionality. As far as I know, though, document which ones are the new Freedom UI package names, but you can also search the titles, of course, as well.
Okay.